Good morning. How the devil are you doing this Sunday? See that? If you look very quickly, there's the answer to today's mystery machine. I'm not going to leave it around for too long. I'm going to say very quick good morning. Good morning to Jim Turner, who was hot off the mark this morning. Good morning, Jim. Good morning also to our friend Mick as well. Chris Ford is in the house. Greetings, gang. Happy Tuesday. Soon be Easter. Just as a thought, next up, Valentine's Day, 1 month from today. If you haven't already got one, get yourself a Heartbreaker t-shirt from the Demolition News merch store. Lou Carney's here saying, morning, lovely people. She most definitely means you lot rather than me, but I've got some buttons to press. Let me have one of those, and I'll do Lou's in just a second. Also going to say good morning to... I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, but somebody over on Instagram is saying, good day. Yeah, good day to you as well. Assy Bell... Don't know, but good morning. Thank you for being here. If you're over on Instagram, excuse me. Ken Hatter has just joined us as well. Ken Hatter has got the Welsh weather yet again. It looks like that. It always looks like that in Wales, to be perfectly honest. I do need to get rid of my name from the screen, which I don't know why it keeps coming back, because I think by now everybody should probably know who the hell I am. Let me take that away. Right, okay. So got the usual mix of stuff. All I would say is today's morning monologue is a serious one. It's about Grenfell and the possible demolition thereof. So just bear that one in mind. And our friend over on Instagram is actually from Kazakhstan. Asilbek 92 from Kazakhstan. You may be our first viewer from Kazakhstan, but good morning. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Gary Major is here as well. Designer of machines to the stars is Gary Major. If anybody wants to know anything about machine design, Gary's your man. You can find him over on Instagram as well. Chris Ford saying, say it with flowers, anyone got a Triffid for sale? I take it Mrs. Ford isn't listening. And Mark Whiting is here as well. Let me press Mark's button as well. That's the wrong button. Oh, come on now. Mark Whiting's button is there. Yes, good morning, everyone. Without further ado, how about we get this underway? I'm going to post the question of the day, get the show on the road, and it will start with a bit of all this. Going to say a very quick good morning to Mick Appleby, who's just joined us over on Instagram, and also our friend Peter McKenna is over there for some reason. I don't know why he's watching on Instagram, but good morning to you. Dan Cullen's just arrived as well. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dan. Good of you to join us. We will be doing the mystery machine in just a moment, and I think you are, well, about time you got some points on the board, I would say. Chris Ford says, hopefully Mrs. Ford isn't listening. It would spoil the surprise. Might spoil your dinner as well. It is Tuesday, the 14th of January, 2025. Welcome to the Break Fast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, a Liebherr demolition beast goes to work. Dynapac heralds the dawn of the Z.Era, and Mantovanibenne attachments in action. And Peter McKenna is over on Instagram because he's waiting for a Facebook update. They seem to come thick and fast, don't they? Yes, and in my morning monologue today, we're going to be asking if Angela Rayner green lights the demolition of Grenfell Tower, which is apparently that decision is due next month, who would want the contract? But before we get to all of that, we do have the small matter of today's mystery machine, which I'll come to in just a moment, because I do need to say good morning to Paul McHale. Paul, good of you to join us, my friend. Good to see you here. Normally, fairly sure I see you over on Instagram more than not on Instagram, on LinkedIn more than I see you anywhere else. But good of you to be here. Enjoying your company as always. Right, mystery machine. We'll be back in a second. Yes, I said at the top of the show, I have a piece of paper here. If you could do a freeze frame, you can actually get the answer to today's mystery machine. I don't think you can do that live, but it was on there. So this is the machine I would like you to identify. I mean, obviously, that's not the whole machine. That's just a wheel. But I'm looking for a make and a model. If you would be so kind, let me know what you think that might be. What do we got here? There we are. Oh, the mystery machine. Yes, the mystery machine indeed. We're looking for a make and a model, as we always are. While you're thinking about that, let me very quickly remind you of today's question of the day. We've already had one answer, but I'm expecting more. Yeah, very, very simple one today. Our question of the day today is, how do you like your eggs? That's cooked. Chris Ford, I'm looking at you. Please don't tell me fertilised. I've heard the joke before. So, eggs. Somebody offers you eggs. Are you going fried, scrambled, boiled, poached, baked, or coddled? Or do you have another way of cooking your eggs? Personally, I don't think there's much in the world to beat a fried egg sandwich, particularly with a lot of brown sauce. But what about you? How do you like your eggs? Mick says, sent you a private message on Facebook. Have a quick look if you can. Okay, I'll try and do that, Mick. I'm not a big Facebook user, to be honest, but I'm sure I can figure that out. How hard can it be? My wife does it all the time. So yes, we want the mystery machine, and we also want to know how you like your eggs. I think Ken Hatcher was the first off the mark there. He reckons sunny side up. Sunny side up indeed. Mystery machine, we've got Dan Cullen reckons it could well be a JCB dumper. It is not. He also reckons it could be a JCB 9T-2. It's not. I'll tell you now, not a JCB. Not a JCB. Ken Hatcher, wow, that's an XMCL Michelin tire. Does that narrow it down? Does that help you with identifying the machine? Does that? Anybody got anything? Ken Hatcher has just gone for the JCB 3CX Pro. Definitely not a JCB. Peter McKenna over on Instagram reckons fried or scrambled, lots and lots of black pepper. Yeah, a lot of salt as well. I do like a salty egg. That's a whole other story. Question of the day, Scotch, wrapped in sausage meat and breadcrumbs. Have you ever had a black pudding Scotch egg? Oh, that's a thing, and no mistake. We'll come back to the mystery machine in a moment. We'll come back to the question of the day as well. But it is time to crack on with the show, and we start with some news. The surge in data centre construction is set to continue, bolstered by a newly announced wave of projects valued at £14 billion. This fresh investment, unveiled by three major tech companies, will push the total committed funding for AI and data centre infrastructure to an astonishing £39 billion over the next 5 to 10 years. The announcement coincided with the launch of a new government action plan aimed at accelerating growth in the AI infrastructure sector. As part of this initiative, the government has introduced a blueprint to foster investment through the establishment of AI growth zones. These designated zones are designed to expedite planning approvals for data centre construction, ensure better energy grid access, and attract further global investment. The first of these zones will be situated in Culham in Oxfordshire, setting the stage for rapid development in the region. And the winners have been announced for a £500 million framework aimed at helping the NHS reduce carbon emissions across its buildings. This initiative is part of the NHS's ambitious goal to become the world's first net zero national health service, with a target to achieve net zero by 2040 for emissions it directly controls. The 4-year agreement will cover a range of projects, including internal and external wall insulation, installation of ground and air source heat pumps, electric heating systems, ventilation systems, and upgraded lighting. Additionally, work such as window and door replacements, as well as measures to address damp and mould, will be undertaken. This comprehensive effort underscores the NHS's commitment to sustainability and reducing its environmental impact. So, I'm sure I wasn't alone. Yesterday, I watched Keir Starmer talking about the UK potentially becoming a global hub for AI development. Couldn't help but laugh. Seriously, if you're a tech company, where are you looking to develop the future of AI? China? India? The US? Japan? Korea? At no point is a major tech company thinking, yes, Britain, that will be the tech hub of the future. Pie in the sky, people. Pie in the sky. Back to the mystery machine, which currently looks like that. Just want to say, Jim Turner agrees. Black pudding Scotch eggs, they are lovely. They are indeed. Dan Cullen go for the JCB 2CX 180. It's not one of those, not a JCB or any type. Ken Hatcher says, not many fit that tyre. So what does? What does? That's the answer. Dan is going for a Polizzani PB 180. It is not one of those. Chris Ford on the subject of eggs. Egg sandwich for breakfast today. Love egg as long as it's not raw. Boiled, fried, poached or scrambled. Always a meal. Yeah. And I understand the origins of the egg. I realise from whence it came. But wasn't that good of Mother Nature to pre-pack, to package a perfect meal in some? I mean, I realise it's quite a fragile packaging, but imagine, there you are. Not only is it a fine thing to eat, but it's got its own packaging as well. Mother Nature, gotta love her. No correct answers yet on our mystery machine, so let me show you a bit more. There you are. Does that help at all? Just very quickly, Mick, I am not seeing a private message from you on Facebook. Not seeing anything at all. I've got my Facebook page open at the moment. I've got nothing there at all. So if you would like to send it via email or something like that, that would be very, very helpful. Peter McKenna reckons it could be an XC6 4513K. I don't even know who makes that. It's not one of those. Good morning to Garvin. Thwaites 9-ton dumper, reckons Chris Ford. It's not a Thwaites, it's not a dumper. Keep the guesses coming. We've got the first of our proper films in just a second, and it features the fine folks at Liebherr, so stick around.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, a couple of things. So, Balmer is not a million miles away. Balmer is, 3 months away? We're going to be spending the first couple of days with the fine folks at Liebherr, who I'm about to show you. But if you are planning to make the trek to the Messe München in Germany, go and have a look at my LinkedIn profile. Last night I was sat there bored, and I produced a Balmer survival guide. You might like to look at it. Go and have a look at my LinkedIn profile. You'll see it there. Now, back to Liebherr. Oh, no, hang on a sec. We just had a comment. What is this? A Hydrema dumper. It's not a Hydrema dumper. However, just carry on down that line, Ken. You're close. Actually, don't even bother carrying on down that line, because I can tell you, Dan Cullen has got the right answer. About time Dan was on the board this month. He has correctly identified our mystery machine as a Hydrema 906G, and just to prove that he's not making that up, there it is, Hydrema 906G. So Dan Cullen with his first points on the board for the month of January 2025. Previous champion, obviously, but well done, Dan. Thank you very much indeed for coming up with that. And that means I don't have to concentrate on that anymore, so I can take that out of the way and crack right on. And as Dan Cullen rightly says, boom. That's mic drop moment from Dan the Man Cullen. Yes, I've promised you Liebherr. Liebherr you shall have. Back at the last Balmer, my personal favourite machine of the entire show was the Liebherr 980 demolition machine. Well, this is its smaller brother. Still quite a beast. That's some tool, isn't it? Absolutely. Peter over on Instagram says a true dinosaur. It certainly is. And we've got some other comments as well. What we got here? A nice kit, and the sticker is cool. Yeah, it certainly is. Did anyone see? He wasn't using it. Steve Williamson was working alongside a machine at Intermat, and it was decked out in lots of Batman, the Dark Knight decals and stuff. Looked absolutely awesome. Why don't we do more of that? Why don't we do more of that? Mystery Machine, Dan Cullen says, back in the game. Yes, he is indeed. And he also says, clues. The articulation and the mudguard gave it away, either an ADT or a 180 articulated. There you are. That's how he did it. And Mick says, just done the email. I think I just saw it arrive. Yes, I will have a look at that. Mick. I can see it over on my screen right now. Before I go and do that, I probably need to play something for you lot, don't I? Let me do this, and then I'll tell you about electric compaction equipment. Jake Paddy, #1 over on Instagram, just said, Mick Saunders, where is he? I'm guessing he's at home, down sort of Isle of Dogs way or thereabouts. Isle of Dogs, I think that's fairly accurate. Jake, if you'd like me to hook you up with a contact with Mick, just let me know. You might recall maybe 18 months, maybe 2 years ago, Dynapac brought their first Z.Era compactor into the UK, and we were actually the first to film it. Just by fluke. I don't even know why they allowed us to do it, to be perfectly honest, but we were the first to film it. We went out on a site to see it in action. Well, they've now extended their Z.Era range, and it looks like this. Get the idea of the reduced actual exhaust emissions. I do understand that. Not going to get a great deal of gain out of making them silent, though, are you? Because they are noisy buggers, those things, aren't they? Whacking bits of metal against the ground. Yeah, it's never going to be quiet. Dan Cullen says, nice selection of compaction plates. I totally agree. Mick says, who? He goes by the name of Jake Patty over on Instagram. Clearly seems to know you. Mick, you've just done the email. I've seen the email. I'm assuming you mean the one... I don't want to give the game away. I assume you mean the one that I've been reporting on this week. Yes? I think you probably do. And trust me, I am watching it very, very closely. By the sound of it, not going to have a resolution anytime soon. I realise I'm talking riddles here. There's a reason for it. My apologies to everybody that's not in on the riddle, but it will make sense in the fullness of time. Right, okay, that was Dynapac. We've got one more film to play you, and then we're getting all serious and stuff. But the bit between now and getting serious is pretty damn spectacular, so stick around.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, have to admit. Well, I mean, you already know I'm a fan of all things Italian, but I'm a particular fan of all things Italian attachments, not least of which I would say is MBI, or Mantovanibenne as they're better known. Check this out. I'm with Chris Ford. I absolutely am. My kind of video. Could watch that all day. Yes, indeed I could too. Mick says, Jake doesn't work for the HMRC. I hope. No, he doesn't. He doesn't. Dan says, Mark, if you're free this Saturday, can we and Mick and Nigel, anyone else interested, set a date to meet up and put it in a calendar. As time is ticking on, soon be plant works time. Before you know, Saturdays are basically impossible for me. I work in the morning and then I'm picking my father-in-law up from dialysis on a Saturday afternoon. Saturdays are basically a no-go, I'm afraid. Tunes, he says. Indeed. Yes, that's about that. Just make sure there's nothing happening over on Instagram before I crack on, because I've hidden it basically. No, all present and correct. So it is that time. That's about it for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, do please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. And I hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, and you don't mind subject matter that is quite serious, I'll be back immediately after, when I find the right button, immediately after this. At some point in the next month or so, the Deputy Prime Minister will make an announcement about the future of Grenfell Tower. Some believe it should remain as a permanent reminder of the greed and dishonesty that led to the tragedy in the first place. Others argue that the remains of the building should be demolished to bring some closure to the families of those killed. But that begs the question, who would want the job of demolishing Grenfell Tower? It's a question that resonates deeply, considering the profound tragedy that unfolded on the 14th of June 2017, when 72 lives were lost in a catastrophic fire. The tower, now a haunting symbol of systemic failures and profound loss, stands as a stark reminder of the need for accountability and change. As Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner prepares to decide the tower's fate next month, the prospect of its demolition raises complex emotional, ethical, and technical challenges. The Grenfell Tower fire was not merely an accident, but a culmination of systemic negligence, regulatory failures, and corporate malpractice. The public inquiry's final report, published in September last year, delivered a damning verdict on the construction industry's practices, highlighting a chain of failures and systemic dishonesty that led to the disaster. This context amplifies the sensitivity surrounding any decision to demolish the tower, as it embodies the need for justice and remembrance for the victims and the families. The bereaved families and the local community are deeply divided over the tower's future. Some advocate for its demolition, seeking closure and the establishment of a fitting memorial to honour the victims. Others argue for its preservation, at least in part, as a lasting testament to the systemic failures that led to the tragedy. This division underscores the profound emotional weight any demolition would carry, making the role of the demolition contractor not just a technical endeavour, but a deeply human one. From a technical perspective, demolishing Grenfell Tower presents its own challenges. Experts have warned that such an operation would be challenging and require extremely careful planning and execution. The tower's current state, coupled with its location in a densely populated urban area, adds layers of complexity to the demolition process. Ensuring the safety of workers and residents, managing environmental concerns, and meticulously planning the dismantling process are critical components that any contractor would need to navigate with the utmost precision. But that's only part of it. The scrutiny accompanying this demolition would be unparalleled. Media outlets, both national and international, would closely monitor every step, while the local community would watch with a vigilant eye, ensuring that the process honours the memory of the victims and respects the sentiments of the bereaved. Any misstep could cause deep emotional harm, further eroding public trust. The emotional burden on demolition workers tasked with dismantling Grenfell Tower would be immense. They wouldn't be merely engaging with a structure. They would be entering a sacred space marked by profound loss and grief. Each brick and each beam they handled would be a poignant reminder of the lives lost and the harrowing stories of survival and bereavement. The weight of this tragedy would be ever present, and workers would be constantly aware of the emotional and symbolic significance of their actions. The psychological impact of working at such a site could be profound, requiring not only physical skill, but also emotional resilience and deep empathy for the bereaved community. Moreover, the ethical implications for any contractor involved are equally profound. The construction industry has faced intense criticism for its role in the events leading up to the Grenfell tragedy. Engaging in the demolition could be seen as an opportunity for the industry to demonstrate accountability and a commitment to rectifying past wrongs. However, it also risks being perceived as profiting from a disaster, a notion that could further damage the industry's reputation if not handled with transparency and sensitivity. The decision to demolish Grenfell Tower is not merely a matter of structural engineering. It's a deeply symbolic act that intersects with issues of justice, memory, and community healing. The contractor who undertakes this task, assuming it goes ahead, would need to possess not only technical expertise, but also a profound understanding of the human dimensions involved. They would need to engage with the community, listen to the bereaved families, and approach the task with humility and respect. Based on all of that, who would want the job of demolishing Grenfell Tower? There you are. Decision sometime next month, apparently. That is what we're being told. Let me go back here. Is that a new video, Mark? As they have a similar one on YouTube that's 10 years old. Which one are we talking about? Are we talking about the Mantovanibenne? Not entirely sure on that. Dan Cullen says a Sunday. It's possible. Wife is at work on a Sunday, so that's possible. Get CDI in to demolish it, out with the old and in with the new, and have the new one as a memorial for the dead using modern technology that will last for many years to come. I'd be astonished if this was an explosive job. I think this is going to be very, very sensitive, very, very gently picked apart, assuming it happens as well. The cladding saga isn't just Grenfell, it's happened worldwide. It's happened nationwide and worldwide. You're absolutely right. Mick says, whoever gets it, I'd love to be a fly on the wall when the bidding starts. In my own opinion, it needs to be demolished. It's in a dangerous condition, another tragedy waiting to happen. That is my take on it. Having spoken to people that have been in there and stuff, that is certainly my belief that it should come down. But then I have no emotional connection to it. As far as I'm concerned, it would be better for the local area and ultimately I think for the families as well. But then that's not for me to judge. If the bereaved families are opening their curtains every morning and looking at that tower and that gives them some kind of respite or some kind of connection with those that they lost, who am I to argue for its demolition? But it is going to be a tricky one. Just going back to the point that Peter made about getting CDI in. All of this discussion about Grenfell basically takes us back down the line of Didcot again. The second half of the tower of the boiler house that collapsed and took with it 4 demolition workers back in February 2016. There was a half of that remained upright, but was very, very unsafe. So ultimately, the decision was made to go in and blast that, and they blasted it while the 3 of the 4 men were still unaccounted for. Which I know caused an enormous amount of pain for the families involved. That's not the case with Grenfell, but then when you balance that out, 4 lives lost at Didcot, which was 4 too many, but 72 at Grenfell, local community and everything else. I just think I'm not a demolition contractor, but I'm not even sure I'd want to bid for that one. Listen, I realise that it's going to be, a nice little earner for somebody and everything else, but I don't actually think that comes into it. Foul Fish Cat over on Instagram just said hi. Good morning to you as well. Grenfell Tower MP says criminal cases must come as soon as possible if the building is demolished. the problem you've got, and it is a balancing act, I think. And I draw on the experience with Didcot. I think if there is such a thing as an ideal world in the aftermath of an incident that killed, in the case of Didcot, 4 people, then the way that it would have panned out would have been recover the bodies of the 3 guys that were missing, lay them to rest, and then bring the rest of the building down. The problem that they had was the fact that, the other half of the boiler house was kind of teetering on the brink, making the recovery of those 3 men impossible. So that was why they did it in that order. We've got a different set of circumstances, I think, with Grenfell. I'm going to say good morning to Cormac McLean, who's just joined us. We've got a film coming about Cormac McLean in the very near future. Watch this space. But I think the Grenfell one is more problematic. I think that it's way more problematic because it's wrong. It was wrong on so many levels. Obviously, the systemic failures and the dishonesty and the greed that went into creating the circumstances that led to the fire in the first place. That's one part, and I do think that it could be argued that demolishing it is basically covering the industry's tracks. I don't actually believe that's the case, but it could be argued that is the case. I think it could also be argued that, while the court case is still going on, while they're still trying to get financial recompense for the families and everything else, it could also be argued that it's too soon for that as well. I understand all of that, but you've got a burnt out building in the middle of an urban environment. It's not good. Really isn't good. I'm also going to say a very quick good morning to Matt Phillips over at Downwell Demolition, one of my personal favourites. Downwell Demolition. Morning, Matt. How are you doing, my friend? Good to see you here. Jim Turner, the product of trying to make a silk purse out of a sales tab, he says, should never have been allowed in the first place. If it's unfazed, it needs dropping. Could a new tower be built around the old footprint so it can be a memorial garden and still replace the structure? There are quite extensive plans of turning part of that ground into a memorial. Those plans have already been laid out in a report that was published back end of last year, around about September last year, if memory serves me correctly. I may even be able to find that. Bear with me one second. If I can remember how to type, that would be helpful. Yeah, let me throw this up on the screen for you. Bear with me one second. Present, share screen. Looks like this. That's not working. Let me take Jim off the screen just for a moment. I know you probably can't even read that. Grenfell Tower Memorial. Grenfell Tower Memorial Commission and Royal Institute of British Architects, that's RIBA, have launched a process to select the team that will design the future memorial on the site of the Grenfell Tower. That's back on the 25th of September last year. It's described as a hugely significant step in the Grenfell Tower Memorial Commission's journey to create a bold, fitting and lasting memorial to remember the 72 victims who lost their lives in, and those whose lives were changed forever by the devastating Grenfell Tower. Sorry, lost the ability to read. A shortlist of up to 5 teams will be notified in the autumn. These teams will be asked by the Commission to prepare a design. With direct input from the Grenfell community, the final team is expected to be selected and announced in spring 2025, which is not far away. Anticipated the memorial design should be sufficiently developed in partnership with the community to allow for a planning application in 2027. I don't know what, obviously early doors, so we don't actually know what the memorial will look like, but 2027 just for planning permission. So it's still a ways off. What do we got here? Dan Cullen says, going back to when it was built, safety wasn't a major factor and cladding being used was all available back then. It was, but we know now that what bothers me almost as much as all of this is the fact that we now know the cause, and I realise it was sparked, as Dan rightly says, it was sparked by a refrigerator, but obviously the cladding, which was cheap and acted as basically a chimney and exacerbated the spread of the fire. We all know that, and yet we know there are also other towers, blocks in the nation's capital, up and down the country and overseas, and we're basically doing fuck all about it. The Metropolitan Police and Crown Prosecution Service said no charges would be announced until late 2026 at the earliest because of the increasing scale and complexity of the inquiry. Yeah, which, again, draws another parallel with Didcot, which we are now about, let me think, we are now a month and 2 weeks. So about 6 weeks away from the 9th anniversary of the Didcot disaster. No further along with that either. And Mick rightly says this is going to take as long as Didcot, if not longer, for any court cases. I, for one, wouldn't want to look at that building every day. I can relate to how the families feel, but if they need closure, then get rid of the damn thing and let them get on with their lives. Yeah. Well, listen, speaking from a safe distance, which I am, that would be my fault. I wouldn't want that as a constant reminder. But I can understand people wanting that link with those that they lost. I don't even think it's one of those. I don't even know if there's a right answer on this. Because I think whatever happens, whether it remains, whether it's demolished, how it's demolished, whatever, it will be wrong for somebody. Had they had fire suppression retrofitted, it wouldn't have happened. No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. See few landlords arguing residents over cladding used on new building, claiming it's residents' responsibility. Read about it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't actually know how you argue that. You know, if God forbid there were a Grenfell 2, if there was a fire broke out in another tower block and more people perished, would you as a landlord stand up? Could you stand up and say, well, I told them they needed to sort that out, but, you know, they didn't, and, well, you know, that's what happens. I mean, for one thing, not really a legal argument, but for another, from a moral perspective, could you argue that? Don't think I could. Peter McKenna says, pass the buck as per usual. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think the government, I don't think the local authority, I don't think the industry has helped itself in any way, shape or form. You know, rather than, you know, putting your hand up and saying, you know, yes, that cladding wasn't as good as it should be. We had been warned and everything else. It was fault and it was fault and it was fault. And it just dug a deeper and deeper hole. Dan Cullen says, yes, Mick, get rid of the eyesore and build a lasting memorial. Yeah. Well, again, that would be my take, but my take counts for absolutely nothing. The reason I flagged that up, though, was purely that notion of, would you want to be the demolition contractor that got the job? And we touched on this. I can't even remember what we were talking about yesterday, but I touched on this. Oh, I know what it was. This notion of creeping responsibility. So if you are, you know, you're an average digger driver and you are made the mental health first aider, part of your job is to take on board the emotional distress of those working around you. So, you know, you're going to be dealing with marital breakdowns, financial issues, addiction issues, and all those kind of things. Are you, despite the fact that you've been through the training, are you prepared for that? And I would say exactly the same with this. As I said in that article, or in that monologue, this is not just a demolition project. You would be constantly aware. I mean, I'm sure on your way to work, if the demolition goes ahead, on your way to work, you would be passing, you know, bouquets of flowers and signs and graffiti and stuff, remembering the 70s. There would be a constant reminder. And I went to Porto in Portugal. I don't know, it must be 10, 12 years ago, possibly even longer than that, to see an explosive demolition. And we were there the day before the blast was due to happen. So we got an opportunity to basically walk the building before the blast happened. And that was okay. You know, everything had been stripped away and, you know, it was basically just a shell. But walking into the building and seeing discarded, you know, toddlers' bicycles and footballs and little girls' dolls and dolls' prams that have just been discarded. It is kind of a haunting thing. You know, this is where lives were lived. This is where families came together, and now it's coming down. And with this, I mean, this one in Porto was planned. You know, everybody had been moved out. They'd been moved out safely. They'd all been rehoused somewhere else, and this was coming down. This is all part of a planned process. Grenfell is not like that. You know, and I'm sure there's nothing left within Grenfell Tower itself that would serve as any kind of reminder of the lives that were lost there. I'm sure that's been all cleaned up and everything else. But literally arriving for work and seeing that tower day in, day out, if you are given the go-ahead to demolish it, what is the emotional toll of that? Would a demolition contractor actually need some kind of on-site counselling to get them over that? Aditya Thacker possibly says, hello, sir. Where are you coming from, Aditya? I'm sure I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, but please let us know. Dan Cullen says, that is the mentality of the UK construction engineering sector. Always pass the buck on to the next company or the next person. Yeah. Unfortunately, it is. 50 years before Grenfell, 72 people died in the Stockport air disaster. I don't remember that one. I'll look that up. I don't remember that one at all. When was Grenfell again? I'm just going to remind myself. It was 2017, wasn't it? Middle of 2017. Let me just make sure I've got my facts straight. I'm sure I mentioned it. Yeah, 14th of June, 2017. So we are now 8 years on, or soon to be 8 years on. Much the same as we are now 9 years on from Didcot. And we're still talking about it. If I fucked up, and I realise if I fuck up, and I do regularly, but if I do fuck up, just the humanity in me, even though my fuck ups are, I've misspelled somebody's name or something, but I would, my inclination is to amend my cock up as quickly as possible. The UK investigating authorities seem to have done the reverse. If we really, really, really take our time, really drag our heels, then maybe no one will remember, and maybe it doesn't really matter anymore. There you are. Peter McKenna says, I hold my hand up to 99% of all my fuck-ups. Listen, most of my fuck-ups are made in the glare of the watching public. You know, if I stumble over my words or if I get something wrong, if I state what I believe to be a fact and it turns out to be wrong, it's there. It's in black. It's not black and white. It's in glorious Technicolor. I've got no choice but to put my hand up and admit it. Exactly the same with Didcot. Exactly this, or not with Didcot, with Grenfell. Exactly the same with Grenfell. We know precisely what caused it. Put your hands up. Mick says, how many buildings have we all walked past and seen wood cladding on buildings? We all wonder why. End of days, most demolition workers know about metal fires, and Ali is one of the worst. The government knew about the dangers of asbestos in the early 1900s, as they knew about the dangers of cladding. Look at how the fire regs changed over the last 40 years. So much was ignored due to greed. Funnily enough, my wife is currently rewatching the TV series Inspector George Gently. I don't know if you remember that. Martin Shaw as the Geordie. I don't know if he's a Geordie, but he's certainly up in the northeast, set in the 1960s. And last night's episode, which I wasn't watching, but it was playing in the background while I was doing something else, was actually about a factory in Durham, I think it was, and mesothelioma. Yeah, so you're going back to the 1960s, late 1960s, when we were very aware of the effects of mesothelioma and asbestos. And here we are still sending demolition and construction workers into buildings where there is asbestos. We've known about it for more than 50 years, the hazards about involving it in more than 50 years. Thousands, tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of people have died. And here we are still doing exactly the same thing. With that as a background, are we really expecting cladding to be sorted out? Probably not. Chris Ford, the man who's never fucked up, has never done anything. I don't think there's a man alive who hasn't screwed something up, and there's always a woman to tell you that you have as well. Peter McKenna, lol, we complain about fires here with concrete and brick buildings, yet the USA has more wooden buildings. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Well, it always amazes me. I obviously watch a lot of YouTube and watch Demolition from the States, and the number of times you think, oh, that's a lovely building, or particularly houses. Oh, that's a lovely house. They're going to demolish it. Oh, it appears to be made from matchsticks. Why did they even bother with an excavator? You could have done that with just a good whack with a sledgehammer would have brought that down. Yeah, very, very strange. Then again, I guess maybe they've got the weather for it. Maybe they've got more of an expertise in timber. I don't know what it is, but yeah, they certainly seem to do that a whole lot more than we do. Anyway, folks, that is enough of all of that. I kind of fancy some breakfast. So I'm going to love you and leave you. I'll be back tomorrow for more of the same. I think tomorrow I'm going to be talking about hydrogen, and will it fulfill its promise? That may well be the subject du jour for tomorrow. I know du jour means today. I don't actually know what tomorrow is in French, but if anyone knows. The golden rule to remember: when you're wrong, nobody forgets. When you're right, nobody remembers. Oh, ain't that the truth? And therein lies a description of marriage. The amount of new builds that go up in flames, though, is astronomical. Yeah, always surprised me the number of buildings that are kind of earmarked for demolition that are also seem to catch fire a bit. Weird, that. Agree, Mick Green is the reason a lot of these problems in the industry. Safety is a second, third issue. As long as they gain profit, everything else, they don't give a stuff. No, you're absolutely right. Mick says BMW are going hydrogen. Yeah, as I say, if you're in any way intrigued about future fuels, two things. You might like to go and have a look at my LinkedIn profile, where there is now a Future Fuels newsletter. Doesn't have a lot in it yet because I've only started it over the weekend, but that's coming. But then tomorrow we're going to be doing a bit more on that, talking about hydrogen. And I know a lot of people in the plant industry are currently sat on their hands saying, yes, electric's all well and good, but hydrogen, yes. Really. Tune in tomorrow. You'll see. Let's have a look. Love you, bye. Which wanker thought that up? Not sure what you're getting at there. Going to say good morning to AgTech Plant, who have just joined us somewhat belatedly, unfortunately, over on Instagram, because we were about to shut up shop. McGillicuddy Mark is over on Instagram as well. All these people are arriving on Instagram just as we're about to walk out the door. But I appreciate your company regardless. Anywho, people, that's nearly an hour. That's 50. Well, by the time I've shut up, it'll be 53 minutes. Have a good day, everybody. Please, bearing in mind, and I realise you're not working surrounded by fire and stuff, but bearing in mind all we've just said about Didcot and all that we've said about Grenfell, look after yourselves today. I'd like to see you all here tomorrow, healthy and with all your bits and pieces intact, if you could possibly do that. Dan says, great show, Mark. Thank you very much indeed for that. Stay safe, fellas. Catch you later. Good stuff. No Gary today. No, I think he's on a different job again today, but I'll send him your regards. Don't worry about that. Everybody have a good day today. Back tomorrow. Till then, behave yourselves. All the best.